Hi, and welcome to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hershey, owner of Salmon's Transfer, located in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today's guest is Brian Slater from New City Moving, located in Chicago, Illinois, in the bright US of A. And Brian, thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the fact that we can do this.
Yeah, no problem. I've been to Chicago once, and I joked with someone after because I said, I've been in New York, I've been to Chicago, and during the day, it was one of those things where I was downtown, I go into a department store, I come out, and it was like a cattle hide. Like you have to almost jump in line and carry on with everybody hustling and bustling in Chicago.
Yeah. We're all actually taught Kung Fu at a very young age to be able to to sort of negate some of that stuff. But yeah, it's hustling, it's bustling. What was your favorite food in Chicago? We all have this. There's this misnomer that everybody here eats deep dish pizza twice a week. And I think the average person in Illinois probably eats it maybe once a quarter or twice a year sort of deal.
Well, I can only imagine. We obviously went out for deep dish. It was a bunch of boys. We were on a big trip, and it is the most filling meal, right? And it's so much cheese, so much bread. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
I think I've only gotten sick once in my life by eating, and Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza was definitely it.
Right. Yeah, I know for sure. So have you, for anybody that's listening and that has ever heard of New City Moving in Chicago, was that something that was passed down? Were you always in the moving industry? Can you give me a little bit of a story of how you grew up and what got you into the moving world?
Absolutely. So I was born in 1983. I'm now 40 years old. I was raised in the inner city of Chicago by just my mom. Somewhere around high school, I decided, and I'm not proud of this moment for any listeners, but I decided that it really wasn't for me. And I went back to school, got my GED at 16. I was looking through a newspaper, and there was an ad in the newspaper. I was currently working at Office Max or something like that. And there was this ad in the newspaper that said, unlimited earning potential, try a rewarding career in moving company sales. And I thought, hell, I like jobs that are rewarding and unlimited earning potential. So let's give this thing a swing. And when I was 17, I was hired by a moving company located in Skokie, Illinois. They sort of helped me cut my teeth and learn the ropes. And then eventually worked my way up to sales manager. I would say within a freakishly quick amount of time, let's say 3 months or something. And I was managing a team of 5 or 6 there. The service level was good, but I always felt like I might be able to have a slight amount of disruption based on my ability to research and stuff like that. So I started doing sales for moving at 17, roughly did that till about 23 years old. I was doing sales for a bunch of moving companies in Chicago. For any listeners out there that are familiar with Tim Krupp and MoveBees, it was effectively similar to that concept, but back whatever that amount of years is, 2 decades ago. So it was effectively like that. And then once again, I saw that service level wasn't necessarily where I believe that it should be in regards to the carriers that were actually hauling the loads that I was booking. So we had an office in Chicago, and I was standing outside with an individual named Nick, who's my head of fleet now, but he was an in-home estimator at the time. And I think it was some sort of Miller Lite truck drove by, and it had a really badass kind of Chicago flag on it. And I thought with me being an inner city kid from Chicago and me knowing the moving business, do I actually want to get involved in the operations end? And then I started to understand that if I wanted to own the entire process and the entire customer experience from start to finish, that I would eventually have to get off the phones and physically in the trucks and learn the sort of business holistically. So after I saw that cool truck, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to apply for a license with the ICC. It took me about, let's say, a year in order to get the authority. So the startup story goes like this. I had an existing office that I was renting for my last business, and I effectively told my employee Nick at the time, like, hey, let's just throw $10,000 at this thing, see if we can buy a singular truck now that we have a license, and sort of see where we can take this thing. And I actually took a drive to right around outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. There was a truck on Craigslist. It was a 20-foot Hino truck, and the guy had it on for something like $12,000. I was talking to the guy, and he owned a cabinet making company, and he said, you know what? I'm looking to sell this truck because I'm getting out of the business. And I thought, like, well, why are you getting out of the business? Let's just small chat a little here. And he said that he had actually needed a hip replacement surgery. At the time, I really only wanted to dedicate the $10,000 startup as sort of like a footnote to see if this concept had any validity to it. And I didn't want to spend the farm just to see if this concept would work. So I asked him the weirdest thing, I asked him what his deductible was for his hip replacement surgery, his out of pocket, and he said $5,000. And I was just like, I just so happen to have $5,000 here in cash. Would you take a runner on me and sell me this truck at $5,000? And that day we ended up driving home that one truck, and organically through the process, we used the money from the revenue and the profitability from that one truck to buy another. And then from those 2 trucks to buy another 2, and then from those 4 trucks to buy another 4. And effectively, I was living on the equivalent of like, I would say I was living on the prosperity line. Was sort of like, it was a studio apartment, a $600 van, and like maybe ramen noodles for 10 years thereafter. But wow, eventually, okay. with that methodology, we were able to grow the company to now, which is just a slight hair under 25 million in revenue. And during summer capacity time, between local and long distance, we're running about 138 trucks.
Wow. Okay. So I love it. This is a great story.
It's a lot to process.
You know what I love is
it's a lot to unpack there, but
oh no, for sure. What the best part, what I love is you're here, and on one side, and then there's someone showed me like a strip of a rope of a timeline and was snipping it. Saying, okay, this is your lifeline. This is da 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 da. And I feel like right somewhere in the middle where you're going to get now a bunch of questions where everybody's wondering, going like, okay, so I'm Brian. I've started off. I got that first truck. I bought a couple more. I'm living off ramen and sitting in my studio apartment. And now I'm at 100 trucks plus. So, what made you guys come up with the name New City Moving? Because there obviously was this process of now you have a couple trucks. I mean, people are going to want to know, what did you do to generate it, right? I mean, I remember when I was in the moving business in my first company, people were like, wow, you have like 15 trucks. And I said, oh yeah, I went from like 4 trucks to 15 trucks overnight because of X, Y, and Z. And I just then said, I have to make sure they're always running. Mm-hmm. So, you've taken these concepts and you've deconstructed how the process goes. So we've done that in the beginning, but then how did you come up with the name? How did you come up with the branding? And then what was the stages that you took with Nick to go, okay, like this is what we need to pursue. This is how we're going to make it big.
Mm-hmm. In regards to the name, the company was supposed to be originally named Windy City Moving, and we were going to have this badass tagline like, we'll make your move a breeze, right? I just thought that I still to this day think that would be much cooler than New City Moving, admittedly, but we're here. We've done it. I'm very proud of the brand. I've been there. I've bought the t-shirt sort of deal. So in regards to the name, it was originally supposed to be called Windy City Moving. So during that 8-month period of time in which we were going for the license, there's this court hearing that happens in Illinois at the ICC. Kind of like when you get married and anybody asks, like, if this marriage shouldn't happen, please speak now or forever hold your peace. That's kind of like it is with moving in Illinois. So I'm standing in front of the courtroom and I'm getting ready, like, oh my God, I'm going to get my license today. This is an amazing day. And so in walks a random attorney and says, well, I do have a dispute here. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, right? Like, am I not good looking enough? Am I not tall enough? I thought 6'2" could get the job done. And this attorney's like, well, I represent a guy that owned a company called Windy City Movers. And although this gentleman's not in business right now, we think that this is directly in competition of the good faith that he's built up over the years.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. So the judge goes, listen, kid, I'm going to cut it straight. You can reapply and go through all this 8-month rigmarole, or you could go out in the hallway, come up with a name, we can put it down, and you can start operating tomorrow. So I was raised primarily by my grandmother and my grandfather. And my grandmother used to take me to a YMCA to play as a kid that was called the New City YMCA. And I was like, yeah, I really love my grandmother. Let's just go ahead and call it New City. At the time, it was sort of twofold for me. With the Chicago fire happening, Chicago's the only real major metro that's been like rebuilt once over, because the Chicago fire with Miss O'Leary's cow effectively burnt down everything that was Chicago proper, because it was all built on wooden streets and things of this nature. So Chicago's typically referred to as New City because it's the only major metro city that's been built twice over. So it sort of, it had a little bit of meaning. Yeah, it ties it in. It's had a little bit of meaning. I wish I had a great story about the logo. I actually signed on to Upwork at the time. I think I get passion from making $1 million ideas out of kind of like, are you familiar with MacGyver?
Right. Sure.
Like, yeah. I think I get my joy from like, hey, let's try to figure out this brand. And let's try to do it on the shoestring budget. So I think I have the physical receipt from Upwork, in which I believe I paid somebody in Pakistan about $13. And I sent them an image of something that I had literally drawn out on loose leaf paper, back to that like Miller Lite truck with a badass Chicago flag. Right. And I think $13 later it was done. I had the vector image, and we just sort of branded it out from there.
Gotcha. So you are now growing this business, and I've had conversations with others where I always say, okay, look, it's easy to maintain as an owner when you have 4 trucks, 5 trucks, because it's pretty straightforward to get a bunch of drivers and employees. You're kind of like still having to jump on a truck if you have to, but in reality, it's manageable and you can still make a decent income. Keep your company small. There you go. Mm-hmm. When you start jumping to like that 10, 12 truck setup, you're now needing, another 1 or 2 salespeople. You kind of want things to grow. You're now having 3 or 4 trucks sitting in the yard. You're going, oh, shit, I got to make sure these trucks are constantly running. They're not generating any revenue for me. And your company is growing, right? And hopefully by the time you are doing 10 trucks, your revenue stream should be well over $1 million a year, $2 million. And
I think let's call it, Mark, let's call it in the States here. I'm not sure how it is in Canada, but in the States, let's call it approximately $25,000 to $30,000 per month per truck.
Per truck.
Typically. Yeah. So let's call it 25,000. So let's call that, right. Multiply that times 12. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You're at this point. What year was this when you guys were just getting going? So you had your first couple
August trucks? 14th of 2009.
2009. Okay. And so
right after what we call Freddie Mac, whatever rich people are doing, taking out money for houses that they couldn't afford or even, sure. This is during the time where everybody in America was like, everybody should be a homeowner. Let's do it.
Right. And was that a catalyst to kind of get you booming, where people are like wanting to move, or you're like, which avenue did you go down to say, okay, like, was it marketing? Was it advertising? Like, what made you grow so fast? And then, what stages did you take? We could end up having this to be like a 3-hour podcast if we start splitting it the next 15 years. But, at what stages as you were growing did you say, okay, now I need this in the office. Mm-hmm. Now I need to have this. Because a lot of people are in that middle.
I'm going to have to dust off the archives here.
Right.
Okay. I'm Brian. I'm 24 years old. Okay. What am I thinking? Okay. I think some of the most difficult part to scalability was those early years, because you do not have historical data in order to dictate how current years are going to look based on historical years. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're starting from scratch and sort of bootstrapping this thing, you don't really have historical data to call back on and say, well, we should do about 60,000 this month, and we should do about 86,000 in a summer month. So if you don't have historical data to call, it's particularly hard to drive the business without a roadmap. It's like a boat at sea, and I don't know which direction my compass is taking me. Typically, when we look at P&Ls, we look at month over month and we look at year over year. So if I was in July, I would look at how I did versus June and then how I did against last July. Without having the ability to do that, the rate in which you recruit and then how that's sort of triangulated to marketing spend, and then on the recruiting side, like it's my belief that all 3 points of this triangle need to be in unison in order to successfully scale a business. I would say during those early days, my main focus was about 8, 9, 10 hours of work per day. And then I was incessantly researching omni-channel marketing, organic SEO, SEM, and things of this nature. I wouldn't call myself master level, but I would give myself like an 8.5 out of 10. So I think that was the precipice for really large growth, is just getting in front of a lot of eyeballs at a decent return on investment. When we started the company, the model went something like, we're right down the street from DePaul University, which is a big college in Chicago. And sort of mission statement was just like, let's move these college kids and put up some flyers and sort of bang out these $225 moves. I think now with our repeat and referral hovering right around 70%, I think that any marketing efforts that we have effectively artificially grow the growth of the company, and then organically sort of we see the windfalls of moving 14,000 people a year, with 70% being repeat and referral, and we continue to grow top line revenue solely based on the fact that we take customer service very seriously. I would think that, 90, even if we did 14,000 moves last year, the 97% of people that had a great experience that were surveyed post move, like they just go through the channels, they have a great experience, they continue to come back, all is well. For those 3% of clients that don't, nothing is beneath me hopping on the phone with 2 or 3 clients a day and just saying, how do we miss the mark and how can we fix this? So like we still kept that feedback loop in our company has always been at the forefront of what we do. So it's like we double down and give 4 times effort on people that didn't have a great experience because we want them to become raving fans. And we just assume by way of the channels that we have post-move that those people will then go on to refer their friends. Right. So in summary, I would say I was working in the office probably 10 hours a day and then spending another 2, 3, 4 hours on different marketing forums and just like fully understanding the business. I
heard you, sorry to cut you off, because I heard you in a panel where, it was kind of like a laughable joke going in 2024, yourself, myself, I mean, we're probably associated with so many different Facebook pages and groups of different moving companies that are all located all around the United States and Canada that are all about sharing and all about helping each other grow. When I backtrack and I think about when I first got into the moving business around 2007, 2008, it was, you have the big players and then you have cockroaches, and you want to be somewhere in the middle to get to the top, and you don't want to associate yourself with that. And if somebody had a moving company down the street, nobody was telling you. If you phone up and you're like, hey, how's everything going? Can I pick your brain? Like, nope, so super busy, yet all their trucks are sitting in the yard. Like nobody wants to share numbers. You couldn't find anything online. There was no group chats, happening. There was no moving conventions unless you were associated with a van line and you'd go to some dry, boring convention. There was nothing out there. So trying to grow and understand and not reinvent the wheel I felt was extremely difficult because I was always hitting an upward battle, trying to learn. And then you go, look, okay, I need a mentor. I want to get into like a coaching program. And so you're the one mover sitting in a whole room with painters, construction guys, carpenters,
a commercial real estate agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just
sure.
and their main goal of being there is to just like, hopefully you're looking to sell your house, or you're looking for somebody that is looking to have their house painted or sold. And now like my methodology was like I like speaking with people. I generally like large groups of people. That's how I get my energy. But my time was not best spent sitting in Toastmasters groups or networking groups in which I could acquire one customer or two customers. My time was best spent learning digital marketing so that I could boil the ocean, is what I was looking to do. So I want to cast the largest net possible. So I wouldn't call it antisocial. I would say it's the prioritization of knowing that I wanted a company and having the vision that I wanted a company as large as it is. And then just casting a large net, making sure that we're providing a good level of a high level of customer service, and then letting our happy customers be the marketing piece. I think a lot of movers say it right, but when it comes down to that bottom line and we're really gut checking ourselves as owners and like, oh, well, I'm obligated to give this client Mark whose TV broke 30 cents. Like, so maybe I'll give him 60 cents. It's just like, I feel like we view moving through this lens of like, we're the victims in a lot of different situations. Whereas like a lot of the methodology that I had when I started the company is like, Mark, I broke your TV. I know that the psychology of that is that every time for the rest of your adult life that you sit down to watch TV, you're going to be pissed off and think about me. And then as you see 10 of my trucks on your drive to work every day, you're going to wish that you could give them the finger for the next 30 years in perpetuity. And for me, it's like, dude, your TV costs like $800. We literally owe you like $40. Just meet me at Best Buy and I'll just buy you the TV. I'll load it in your car. And let's just give this to God and not have this be something that like taints the way that I view the rest of customers for the rest of my life. I think like out of our 3% claims, like half of those people are probably legit claims. Half of those people are probably the people that go into a grocery store and bitch about the cost of broccoli. So it's like, I'm never going to appeal to
everybody.
Yeah. If you look at our Yelp page, it's like, and you see a 1-star review, do know that I've reached out to that client, spoken to that client, given them a more than fair resolution, and they chose violence that day.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Which is fine. Now, I mean, this was something I want to bring up a bit later, but I think this is a great tie-in because when you go and check out for anybody that has a 5 minutes to go onto New City Moving, you're going to see in one of the corners over 1,000 reviews. Now, that's amazing because especially since Google reviews wasn't around back in like 2010 and 2012, and as you grow, and really has become a big boom in being successful in your business is to try and get these raving fans online. I was joking with a realtor yesterday saying, the hardest thing I've always find is someone to give a positive review. Everybody's ready to give a negative review when they have a bad experience at a restaurant or a store or wherever they're in, but to get them to do a positive review is always sometimes like pulling teeth. What situation or like what steps did you take to make it so that you were now moving up like with reviews? Like
I wish I had a very like we will send people a post-move link to ask them about their experience that will ultimately drive them to some sort of channel like Google or something like. This statement that I'm about to make is fully ego aside. If we were actively recruiting people that we move every day and coaching drivers about getting a review or drip mailing campaigns over email and text, with the 14,000 moves that we've done last year and 13,000 the year before and 10,000 the year before, or however that shakes out with the numbers, if we were actively doubling down on this, it is my belief that this thing would be 10 or 15,000 reviews, and it would make us look so fake that we would be artificially pushing people with good reviews to leave reviews. We would be head and tails in regards to reviews above our competitors. that I think like I see more times in these moving groups. Like I had a 5.0 or I had a 5 rating, and then somebody that I don't know reviewed my company, and now I have a 4.8. It's like if you have a decent amount of reviews and your star rating is above a 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, like people expect you to have some sort of amount of clients that defect. So our methodology has always been like the foreman just goes out, or the crew leader, whatever it's called, amongst all the people that are going to listen to this. But the crew leader goes out, walks through the pre-move walkthrough, says, "How did you hear about us?" And then they say Google, Yelp, Angie's List, whatever. And then we just say like, "Hey, if you have, since you found us on there, if you have a good experience today, if you would consider mentioning me and my team, I think that would be great." And we've always sort of prioritized. We've taken the rules of digital marketing very seriously in regards to terms of service. So we've never really artificially pushed we've never really, hey, Google, cancel. I can't necessarily, I got the Google Nest and it heard what I said. And it's like, what do you need? What do you need from Angie's List? Okay, stop now. Sorry about that.
Technology, that's fine.
So we've never really bent the limits of what is acceptable terms of service because I never wanted that D-Day, right? Like that,
right.
Your Yelp page has been blocked or your Google business listing has been sort of frozen up. We're good stewards of the game, and we're just like, hey, we want the reviews to be as authentic as possible, so we don't push people in any one direction, and we let all those reviews come in positively, because it would be very easy for us to, hey, here's $25 to write a Google review, or we'll give you a 2% discount or something like it. Just for us, it's like for all of those people out there trying to be at like 3,000 to 5,000 reviews with a perfect 5.0, like maybe that's how they buy when they go out to a restaurant. But at some point, human beings are going to start, algorithms and human beings are going to be able to see through these sort of review fetching techniques, and it all comes down to just like authentic consumer experience.
Well, I think any consumer is going to look at it going like, whoa, something seems odd. They have 500 5-star reviews and there's like one star review, and where's that mix?
Everybody that moves from
I'm kind of like you too, where
everybody that moves from Mark's company just so happens to take a picture and upload it with the crew.
That's right.
It's just perfectly orchestrated. Yeah.
Amazing, right? Yeah, no, exactly.
Customers love taking pictures with fucking moving crews. Like,
for sure.
They live for it. If you see that kind of stuff, it's like, I mean, eventually consumers will become wise enough, and we want our digital footprint to be commensurate with people that have done the right thing.
For sure. So when I go back to 2009, 2010, you're growing your company, let's say even get up to like 2012, 2013. What type of CRM system you're using? You're growing, you're building. I mean, I go back to that time and everything was on pieces of paper, and I had a whiteboard, and the dates were lined out, and I had the genius idea seeing logistic trucks that had numbers on them. So I was like, oh, I got a number of these trucks, so I know how to keep track of them. I mean, some people use names, which I find even more complicated, but I'm like, let's just keep it to an easy number. I had different numbers for 3 tons and 1 tons. I had different numbers for 5 tons, so at least I knew, if that truck's out, it's these 5 tons that are going out. So I mean, I remember being like the hustle and grind of, at the end of the day, it was taking a photo with, on my phone of the board. So if someone asked me or called me or someone was like, hey, I can't make it tomorrow, I'm looking at that because there was no Google spreadsheets and things like that. Or maybe it was like slowly coming around, but it was still like nobody used it. So were you using a CRM system as you were growing, or how did that work?
I'm not saying I am you, Mark, but in regards to the analogy that you just described, holy shit, I'm a little bit like you. Right. I made the foolish mistake of, naming that first truck that we brought back, the blue truck, and then we got the green truck. And eventually, as you get down to the line and you're like, and you have 30, 40, 50 trucks and you're at like magenta 2, it's like, holy shit, we have to name these things, right? And like, we could get creative and name them like the Al Capone or the, the Buddy Guy or something like that. Would be cool and kitschy. But were focused on things that were sexier than naming trucks. So we just went with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is sort of like, it served us well. We go, we buy the truck, we get the keychain, we get the label maker,
Done.
and that's number 58.
Right.
So that's the way that we did that. In regards to our CRM, we've always worked with a company called Moving Pro. The website address is movingpro.net, and this is a SQL database with a .NET front end. In regards to power and capacity, it's very strong. In regards to aesthetics, it's not the prettiest girl at the prom. But we built proprietary modules that we bolted onto this that for our claims process, for our dispatch process, for our truck check-in and check-out processes. So New City has, I would say, like 5 different modules that do, or 6 different modules that do probably 30 different proprietary things that we've learned over the years.
Wow, okay.
Much like yourself, we did have the old whiteboard, and up until probably about our 3rd or 4th year, and then we knew that we needed to think up some better methodology because I have really long arms. So when I would write a move for Monday on the calendar, like the next Friday, if you can imagine on a calendar, would be getting wiped off by my elbow. And we knew that we had a problem there. I think we missed a move because my elbow erased the 18th as I was trying to get something going for the 2nd. And that was like, holy shit, we can't be missing these moves. Like, this isn't us. Yeah. So to your point, there was no Google Sheets or anything like that. So we came up with a homebrew proprietary system. You had said that you found something similar in logistics. At the time, I was dating a wonderful young lady. I hope she's doing well with her life. And I sat at an appointment at a salon, and I quickly saw, like, hey, maybe these smaller moves are haircuts. And maybe, a cut and color is a mid-size sort of 14,000 pounder. And then maybe like a full foil would be like your all day sort of 2 trucker sort of deals. So we built out a proprietary system that sort of modeled around how a salon would put things into different buckets. We were not, when I say we, it's like, it was my company, is my company, and I really am on the door myself, but I had 2 employees that came over from my old company. But when we conceptualize this kind of stuff, I think that with there not being the Louis Massaros, with there not being the Movified podcasts, with there not being the Moving Titan Retreat or different CRMs throwing on their own little shindigs, you really had to look at reciprocal industries, and you really had to find out how those reciprocal industries tie into moving. And I think a large portion of our success was not having a recipe, and we sort of became a good chef by way of like trial and error.
Okay.
So if we were making chili, like we didn't know, like there wasn't a mark out there doing podcasts that tell us to enter
check out this site.
The onion, put the onions in the chili and put the peppers and then add the beans, right? It's just like, hey, we have some stuff in the cabinet. Let's sort of mix this all together and see if we can make something that's really good.
Did you find that as you were growing, you were obviously thankful to find that type of software in the beginning, as opposed to, I remember having a software and then outgrowing that software. And I find that there's even softwares out there right now that, I mean, thankfully now it's, to me, like, I feel like there's so many options that you want the shiny object. You're like, oh, this is amazing, but it still doesn't do what you need. And that's amazing, and it doesn't do exactly what you need. And it's so difficult as you're like a growing company where you are, having multiple locations and you have maybe different setups. And like for myself now, we have owner operators that are running the trucks. You have sales commissions, you have this, you have that, and QuickBooks,
especially long distance. It's just like origin agent, destination agent. How do I get my blankets back? It's a hot mess.
Yeah, it becomes a shit show. And so, and the softwares that are out there, they don't cut it. So are you still using the same software as you did in the beginning because you have multiple modules, or like, did you find that you needed something that had like a built-in accounting system because you've grown so much. What stages, like where were you at? Where are you at now? Like it's 2024. Where is New City moving with all of your trucks and everything? Is there a split? Like how many locations do you guys have? Are you working with a van? I'm just the one location. You're running over 100 trucks out of one location.
138 trucks from one location. Yeah.
138 trucks out of one location. Yeah. How big is your warehouse?
I think we'll 2x. I'm going to grab a protein shake real quick. My mouth is getting a little dry. I would anticipate that at our $25 million revenue, people should look out for us to be like 50 million within the next 2 or 3 years.
Why is that?
Because we took a minority deal with private equity. So we are slightly PE backed now, and it's more of a focus of maintaining quality while continuing to grow top line revenue.
You still are the CEO and 100% shareholder of the company?
Yeah. I mean, not 100%, but some portion thereof. But yeah, I mean, owner of the company, yes. And in complete operational control, I should say. Really, it would be hard to give me a babysitter. It would be hard to find like, hey, there's this guy from this moving company that like, all ego aside, it would be hard to give me like, hey, Brian, you should be doing like, I love all ideas. And all ideas are great, but it would be hard to find that one person that's just like that old guru up on the hill that's like, Brian, you should be doing this for everything that I'm doing.
Come down from the mountain and here's your plaque of like, these are the steps.
I've completely forgotten about this. Like
but did you go to business school? I mean, to me, like it's where
I only got a GED.
All of this knowledge.
GED is my highest level of education.
What do you like? I mean, people are listening to this, right? They're going, man, like I want to be Brian, right? Because
I hope not. I have an atrocious personal life. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. No, for sure.
I drink like a fish. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. It's always just tweaking out. I'm always just stressed out. I always used to say like month end, I just sit in my chair and just rock back and forth and just like hope for the best. And then now I have a bunch of other people that manage that also. I don't have to rock back and forth. But, when people are looking at it, they go, I don't get it. Like the only way I can see this working is I have 10 locations, each location's doing, a couple million, and eventually I will get to the 30, 40, 50 million mark.
I think that people prioritize the building of additional locations before they've collected all the money that's in their backyard. I believe that unless you are under no certain circumstances, unless you can say I have a good majority of the market share on my market, I'm not paying 2x for marketing and driving an hour and a half to Milwaukee to pick up a nickel when I still have other quarters in my backyard. For me, the methodology of the multiple branch, multiple location system is broken in certain regards. We have a city of 3 million people, so I don't want to say that I'm better. I am a student of the game. I have spent enough hours to reach mastery level ×3 on this. But at the end of the day, I'm in a big market. So I wouldn't want somebody in Des Moines, Iowa to hear that messaging and say, well, I'm just going to do 25 million in Des Moines, Iowa, right? There's markets where if you look at your population, how transient those people are, there's markets where you should be in multiple market situations. My goal at New City was to specifically know the people that work for me, have an impact inside and outside on their lives. So like when I had an opportunity to franchise, I didn't do it because it didn't move me. When I have opportunities to open up different branches where I might be like absentee owner or like partially absentee owner, like it just really didn't move me.
But when you look at that concept and say, okay, like, because I look at somewhere like I'm going to use Piece of Cake in New York, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, great marketing, good branding. They've really honed in
232 trucks, the internet says, or something like
that.
Hey, man.
But they went and exploded and kind of, I mean, I feel like they might have taken your concept and said, look, there's so much in New York. We're really going to focus on New York. They didn't just go and hop and say, hey, I'm going to go to a franchise show. Everybody's got Piece of Cake.
Yep.
But they went ahead and said, okay, you know what? Let's go hit like
Miami, LA. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Some other major, here's multiple million, like $1 million, didn't say $1 million. I meant like, millions of people population, because that they want to then target that market and be huge in that location. Is that something then you would think new cities should be doing as well too? Or you're like, no, there's still quarters on the table for Chicago.
This is the weirdest thing about the way that my mind works. It's just like I wanted to do something inside of the community that I grew up in to give jobs to the people that were also raised in that community. I know this is going to sound like some martyrdom bullshit, but it's actually true, right? Like I wanted to be...
Don't start crying. Or start crying if you want to.
I wanted to be like, I wanted my work to have purpose and meaning, and I wanted to exist inside of a community. And nothing about LA for the assumption that I can make another $3 million per year in LA and another $3 million in Miami or $5 million or whatever. None of that particularly moves me. I would say that I could count on two hands how many times I've actually where like the appeal of money at this company have outweighed the appeal of just learning about business and the desire to keep learning. My highest level of education is a GED at 16. And I have an incessant thirst for knowledge. I've never been able to sort of satiate it. And like I go down these sort of rabbit holes where I become at least some level of subject matter expert within a month on a different thing. And that's kind of like what moves me, right? Like nothing about the idea of me having another 100 trucks in LA or Miami, like none of that moves me whatsoever. Like consequentially, my life would become no better having done those things. Like another steak for dinner, another set of shoes. Like at this point, it's like, you get to that revenue marker and you just like you continue to push yourself in your own backyard until you find out that there's nothing else for you to pick up. I just think that a lot of people, like running a moving business is difficult, especially if you run it sort of the way that New City was structured. I mean, like I was doing sales, claims, I was dispatching, sleeping on a sofa in the office, running credit cards until 2 a.m. Back the next day at 6 to dispatch. Like there was a certain percentage of suffering that came with it. And I think that suffering sort of made me who I am today. The reason why I tell people that we didn't go out to get a bank loan is because like I didn't want to be that guy that had like 1, 2, 3, or 4 trucks worth of domain knowledge. And then like suddenly I go out and get a bank loan for $500,000 and I have another 4 or 5 units on the road, right? Like intellectually, emotionally, I just wasn't ready for that journey of my life. So we just let the whole dance sort of happen organically instead
Has that been your model? Has that been your model though ever since? Like as you were growing, like
up until now, yes.
Right.
Up until now, it's let everything happen as it will, right? Like work with people, invest in them, find those breakthrough moments with your guys, know that at least one of the guys on every truck that you send out would take a bullet for you and make sure that they're reporting back stuff that's happening that might be less than kosher. How
did you build that culture though?
I would say it's setting out to do something for your employees that is mutually beneficial. You have to find those wins where like if it's too one-sided for the employee or too one-sided for the company, that never works, right? So I find those mutual wins. What is that compensation in which we both win? What is that scheduling in which we both win? And then like sticking to something that I'm going to say and actually doing it, I think has helped build trust. In regards to Chicago, like with me not being that spoon-fed, college educated, white picket fence, daddy gave me some money to start a company. Like I've lived I have some wonderful salespeople that work for me, and they're phenomenal people. But my life up until now looks more like the guys that go on the trucks than the people that are doing the sales. And I think that there's certainly there's a certain level of, in Chicago, like there's 2 or 3, I think, great moving companies. And I admire the shit out of the owners. We don't really talk or share notes, but like we all have mutual respect and admiration for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like those guys put in the work to understand more than what's on the SOP. The things that people should do are on those SOPs. And then like the way that somebody should feel, like it's more about an overarching sense of community than it is like New City stands for like whatever shit I can put into ChatGPT, right? Like E, like endurance, W, work ethic. It's like, yeah, dude, like that rah-rah cheery bullshit, like it might work in a lot of different markets for a lot of college-educated football players in California or some shit, but none of my employees want to come in and see that. They want to know, like, if something happens to their mom back in Mexico, that I can hit them with $500 and they can pay me back over the next month so that she can get the medicine she needs. Like, it's just,
I had a driver years ago who worked for me, and drivers aren't making that much money. His mom was dying back east, and I said, "Look, go see her. I'll pay for your ticket." And years later, we're talking like this 10 years ago. I ended up running into him, I think, about a year ago. And that was one of the first stories he brought up, was a thank you for, that I never will forget that. Thank you so much for being able to see my mom before she died, da, 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 da. And I really never asked him to pay me back. It was just kind of like, look, go out. You're one of my top drivers. I want to take care of you. I want to make sure you're taken care of. And I think it really carries a lot. When you're working on culture and trying to build that business. What do you do now with your company and having so many employees?
Let me say one more thought on this, Mark, before I forget. I'm not saying to not make your company have a higher net contribution, a higher net margins, right? I'm not saying piss money into the wind. I'm not saying any of this stuff. I'm saying, like, don't treat every single move like it's a profit center. Treat it like it's a customer experience. Look at your margins like on your P&L at the end of every month or every quarter, every year. All 3 of those, hopefully, you'd be doing. But like, don't treat every experience with the customer like it's your last, because it might be if you have that sort of methodology. Like, I've never been a proponent of like, I'm never going to tell you what to do with your money, but like, I'm not the rich, lavish house. I'm not the massages every Friday and I pull up in my Maserati, right? Like, I don't really give shit for that.
You don't? I was talking to some of your people in your office, and they were saying, man, that Brian guy, he's always showing up in his Ferrari on a Friday.
In his 2021 dark blue Chevy Suburban. Fuck that guy. He doesn't deserve it.
No,
he doesn't deserve those 2 child seats in the back.
No, he needs that 1997 Honda Civic that's rusted.
The way that a lot of this stuff is sold by some of these moving guru types is just like, hey, dude, you're going to get rich quick here, and you can live the lifestyle that you've always wanted to live, and you can come into the office 5 hours a week, and you can just like take your distributions and shit, and you're going to live an amazing life. Like, I think that I couldn't think of an industry that is the complete polar opposite than the moving industry. I believe that everybody that's done something great in moving has done it like just grinding it out, hard hat and lunch pail, fucking crying on the way home from work. Like those character building moments. Like I want to say, like, don't not pay attention to your margins, but if every decision that you make is money motivated, you're going to start to cut corners in the way that you treat other human beings. And you're going to say like, oh, well, Mark might be making $1 million this year, but should he really pay for that $2,000 flight? And I think like the impact value of that $2,000 flight for the duration of time that person worked for you probably paid itself back in triplicate.
Right.
So it's just like we're not in this to work for free, but have something larger or stand for something larger than a get rich quick scheme, or like, I'm going to leave a little bit on the table, man. I always love to leave a little bit on the table. If we were negotiating something and I was hauling loads in for you into the United States, I would never want to walk away from that meeting saying, wow, I really got Mark this time, and we're going to get rich on this. I would say, like, yeah, I left a little bit on the table, and like, Mark will go home to his family, I will go home to my family, and we'll both feel like
we won.
Like, I think that's the way to do it.
Are you a mover looking to make an impact? Discover Moving Letters AI and join the ML Plus Club today to get 100 free letters for your campaign. Elevate your customer engagement with the personal touch of handwritten letters.
If you want to take your company to that next level, it's the only way to subscribe. If you're doing anything but Moving Letters AI, you need to get on it. So it's going to take your business to that next level. You're going to see an increase in that revenue. Let's go.
Don't miss out. Join the revolution and start making moves that matter.